everyone, my name is Mark Val. I'm head of growth at Photon Engine. Previously, I've been also helping to build studios for Ubisoft and Unity, and I also grew PlayFab from zero until the acquisition by Microsoft. So that's more than 20 years in the inside of the online industry. Today I'm here to talk to you about how to retain players with real multiplayer in hyper-casual games. So it's a talk that has a lot of information, so keep in tune. So let's start. So first let's look at the overall multiplayer impact inside of games. As you're seeing here, all the games that has a heart is a game that has multiplayer incorporated. So it's extremely popular obviously on PC, it's also popular on mobile and also on consoles. The one that are half heart is games that actually have either friends that they can play with guilds, or there's clans, but there's ways to cooperate between the players. So the big question we can ask ourselves is why inside of hyper casual games there's not that much growth happening regarding profit inside of the various stores, and one key factor is obviously retention. So hyper casual games taking a huge part of the industry in terms of download, but then in terms of profit it's not really there yet. When I go talk to hyper casual game studios and publishers, they all pretty much say the same thing, is that it's super hard to make multiplayer games. And that's actually very true. And also some others are saying that multiplayer games are expensive to run, and that's actually not correct. So we're gonna go through a bunch of various situations as part of this talk, to both improve your retention, but to say that multiplayer is actually very good for hyper casual games. So the best way to prove that this is actually good is to build a game that is hyper casual and also multiplayer. And that's something that we have done at Photon Engine a bit more than a year ago. And of course, what we are is not a gaming studio. We actually provide services. We don't build games. We do build templates, but we don't build video games. We have a lot of games and studios that are using our services, but that would be the first time that we actually build a game. So a bit more than a year ago, we took the challenge and said, okay, let's do it. Let's make an hyper casual games, and that is going to be fully multiplayer. So it means that the game needs to be built under 6 weeks. So it needs to be very fast to actually build. We need to reach pretty much everyone on the planet, and it needs to be actually very, very not expensive to run. So we're up for the challenge, obviously, because we've been doing that for a long time. And the result after 6 weeks was actually pretty good. So here you're seeing Stumble Guys. So Stumble Guys is a mobile game that is running with full physics. It's using a deterministic engine of ours, which is called Quantum. And actually it was a challenge to build a game that would prove all of the point that I said before. So it's both a game that is extremely easy to learn and to go forward, and obviously we were inspired by a very popular game. So we worked with another studio called Kitka, and then with them we came up with Stumble Guys. In Stumble Guide there's elimination. So how it works exactly is that each of the levels you eliminate the other participant until there's a winner after three different rounds. And it takes about 5 minutes to do a full game. If you lose prior, it can be just a minute or just 2 minutes, depending on where you're actually going to lose. But ultimately, if you want to win, it's about a 5-minute gameplay from the moment you start the app to join a game and go through the various levels. And one thing that is very important is that tournaments adds a lot of retention. We're going to talk that a bit later. So what we also have is a lot of maps. So we wanted to prove that you can do a lot in terms of multiplayer. So you can slide, you can jump, you can push other players. There's a lot of movement, as you saw previously in the video. There's actually also a soccer game that you can play, and each of those are actually very loved by all of the players. And after a little while, well, Stumble Guy made his mark and is now, making a lot of players happy, and we're happy too. So a 4.3 on the Google Play Store, 4.1 on the Apple Store, and players are just asking for more. But obviously, as I said earlier, we are not a gaming studio. We don't want to actually. It was not supposed to be successful, but it was. So we're pretty happy with that as well. So the current KPI that you're looking at is without any user acquisition. It's just 100% organic, and it's running all over the planet. So we have lots of players in India, in Southeast Asia, but also in America and Europe. And it's making about $400,000 a month, sorry. And simply the reason why is that we incorporated monetization a bit later, and now we're actually trying to move the needle up. So if any of you have some suggestions, always welcome. But yeah, so we're happy with the result. So currently we have peaks of 30,000 concurrent user. So what does that mean is that at any time there's either between 15,000 or 30,000 players that are connected at the same time. So that is managed through various regions around the world on top of our services at Photon Engine. And actually it's only 1% of the revenue that we're making out of the game. That is the costs related to operate the infrastructure behind it. So in short, it's very lucrative. We're happy with the results. We're probably going to do more now that we know that we can do these kind of things. But ultimately, it's more about you, other developers, and how you can achieve it as well. So the first question that you have to ask yourself is when to implement multiplayer. Do you implement it at the start, at the middle, at the end? Well, obviously, I hope you found it out right away, is that you have to build or at least design multiplayer from the start. At a developer point of view, it's very different, meaning that the gaming object that you have needs to be networked. You have to decide how your physics engine is going to work. And that way also it's a lot easier to iterate as soon as you have everything networked from start. You're going to have results a lot faster. And obviously, if you take a single player game and you say, oh, I'm going to make it multiplayer, well, there's a lot of things you're going to have to take out of the game in terms of code and then put back to make it networked. So in short, the earlier you are in the process of making a game, you say, okay, this is going to be a multiplayer and we're going to move forward with that. So what is the key of multiplayer game? Well, is to bring players together. Like a good analogy is that if you're walking with the streets with the friends and you're trying to find a restaurant that is good for you, you see many restaurants that is empty, and then you see a restaurant that there's people in it. Well, you're gonna want to go and play with go eat in that restaurant and go with your friends simply because there's people and it adds value. So what we're seeing here actually is different games, but the one at the bottom is Pokemon Go, and there's huge agglomeration happening. So what you have to think about is the operation of agglomeration, putting the players together. That's really key because agglomeration creates value. Like the same story I told you about a restaurant, where a restaurant that is full has more value than a restaurant that is empty in the eyes of the people that are walking past it. And that's the same with games. You have to create traffic, and I think hyper casual games are actually one of the best doors to get that to happen. So one thing to keep in mind is that when you bring people together, they don't have the same psycho traits, and that's very important. Psycho trait is really what's going to make group go together. So for example, you might have a group of people that really wants to kill other players, meaning being the first. Some other group will want to be distinguished, like being either through clothing in the game or through social behaviors where they're going to be seen as being number one. While others, it's really about more achieving every single part of the game. So in that mindset, you have to create places for them because we are human. There's a lot of scientists that have studied humans through the years, and there's a lot. It's called a zip flaw. So it's Z IPF law, and it's really about the operation of agglomeration. It's the attraction of people to other people. And then there's the 80-20 rule, which is that for 80% of the space that you're going to have, most of the players are going to be in the 20% of it. So meaning that for 100% of the space that you have, 80% of your players going to be in 20% of the space. And that's something to keep in mind, is that players want to be together. So you have to create these hubs for them. You have to own your community. Don't let your community go into another platform. You have to put in place every single devices or features for them to be able to speak to each other and actually learn how to play the game, or just communicate to build a clan, or to do any kind of other behaviors that groups like to do together. So to do that, you need a lobby, you need voice and chat, so that the players can actually communicate from one to another. And so you're gonna need to customize also a little bit those lobbies, which means I want to create a lobby with their custom names. You might have some lobbies that are protected with the password, so when I invite my friends, it's only them that can get in. You might want to have some private slots when you create a game, or simply have a full match with everyone together. And obviously you have to be able to report other players that has bad behaviors, because otherwise it's a bit like cancer, where it's just, everyone is having a bad time. So in terms of communication, you can have open chat, but then you got to be moderating all the time and using external services for AI to understand what people are saying and blocking some of the words. Or you can just use whitelisting. That's what I suggest, especially for hyper casual games where every single message is pretty much embedded in the game. There's little buttons and you just press on the button and then it creates an emoji or just a text, and then the other players can see it, and then that's a way of communication, and that's what you want. So we've seen a lot of fake multiplayer games and hyper casual games made with bots, but then bots are actually very good. So bots in PC consoles are everywhere. Obviously there's the NPCs, there's the co-op games where you have bots following you and teaching you how to play. So bots can be used for onboarding. So your first match in a hyper casual game could be with a bot, but that's simply to teach how the game play. And then after that, the next game is going to be with players. So that way the player that is playing right now will have actually won't have a coefficient of deficit versus the other players, because he didn't play the game yet. So bots are good for that. And obviously if you create a match and it needs to have a certain numbers of players, let's say like 10, and there's 9, and you want the game to start under 15 seconds, well, you will just add a bot and then you can start the game. Having one bot is totally fine, because then the other players will see either through emojis or communication that those other players are real players, and that's what you want to create. And so it's going to improve your retention one more time. So use bots as much as you can. You're going to be happy when the players are actually starting a game very fast and actually learning fast as well. Another point to keep in mind is matchmaking. When the player wait, because they have to wait to be able to match with other players. The waiting time can be 7, 15, 30 seconds, if it takes a minute, it's too long, especially in hyper casual games. For us, for Stumble Guys, it's about between 10 and 15 seconds. There's a match of 32 players that is going to start right away, and then everyone can move forward. So while there's this moment of waiting, you have to provide something for the players. Maybe in hyper casual games, it's a good moment to put a playing ad. I don't think that exists yet in multiplayer, which is to have ads while you're waiting for matchmaking. That could be something. Or obviously you can do a bunch of other things, either a chat while you're in the lobby, you can chat with other people that are waiting. You can have a little game that can prove your rating inside of the game. But one thing to keep in mind is that when you search for other players, you usually search for players that are around you. So let's say you are in Northern Europe, then you're gonna search for players that are in that region. But then if you don't find anywhere, you have to search and expand that search. Maybe you're gonna get not only Northern but Western Europe and maybe the south of it, and to gather more players and actually create a good match. So expanded search is very important. And it's all about having a rhythm in the game and having no downtime, so that you go from, okay, I play a game, search, play, or I just go through elimination as it is in Stumble Guys, that the game lasts a bit longer and you play with the same players for a while. So while you're in the game, it totally happens that the teams are not balanced. Let's say you have red versus blue, and then red is very much better than blue, so the blue are like throwing, as we call it, so they're saying, oh, okay, I don't play that anymore. And then you have more players in one team versus the other one, so you need to balance those teams as the game is happening, so that the players can still have fun. So either you can say, well, everyone has left on the other side, there's less than 50% of the team, you guys win, or you take a chunk of the other team and just move them to the other one and you restart the game. That's also possible. Obviously, when you're on mobile, what happens a lot is that you lose connection, so you need to auto rejoin. You need to be able to rejoin the game and continue where the moment is, where it is right now, so that you don't lose the beat. So it's important to have these kind of features. And obviously, if you're part of a team, it's great when you have some bonuses, some more points, to be able to actually promote cooperation between the players. That's another thing to keep in mind. And all of those tips that I'm saying is really about retention. And because players will see that you're actually taking care of them, that you thought about, that they have a good time, and that way you're going to be able to keep them longer. And obviously that's what you want. So at the moment that you are inside of a multiplayer game, and people compete, there's going to be leaderboards and all other there's going to be leaderboards and any kind of other ways to compete to each other. So then hackers will jump in. So you need some DDoS protection to protect your servers, obviously, but also in-game protection. Like what you're seeing now is virtual vein. So someone on YouTube is going in Call of Duty games and sniffing the IPs of the players and then finding who they are. We're using phishing, and which is to actually ask questions to the person, and then go on Facebook, find the phone number, call the person, and like, okay, wow, you are able to do that nowadays. So using peer-to-peer, it's always better to put a relay in front of it so that you hide the IPs. But obviously you need to decide how much protection and security you want for your players. And that will impact your retention. Obviously a game where there's a lot of hacking, people will just say, I don't want to play that anymore. So using having a deterministic simulation where all of the physics in the game is the same on all the phone, and also the instead of tracking where the people are in terms of position, you're actually only using inputs, and then it's the physics system that is going to move the players or objects, interactive objects inside of the scene, will actually improve also your security overall. So that's something to keep in mind. So I'm going very fast into all of these points. So I made a slide with a bunch of them. What you have at the bottom right is more about the psychology, about how to create habits in the players where they come back all the time. But I think you guys already know that part, so I did remove it so that it's easier for you to move forward. So one thing you can ask yourself is where to start. So there's many books that are extremely interested. Either to entity authority, or how to make the server process go faster, communication from server to server. So that's one thing those books are good to read, but there's tons of videos online how to move forward. And if you're wondering where you can go to find ideas, so what you're looking at is Overwatch. Is a PC game, and inside of Overwatch you can create other small games. So usually what happens is that when you're waiting for a match, well, you're gonna go and browse for the games that are running right now, and all of these games are custom. They are built by the players / some developers out there, and they all have the current team. So for example, you will find a Squid Game in Overwatch. You will find a game that is very customized, and the idea of all these little games is that you play for it for like a minute or two while you're waiting for matchmake. and then after that, you can pick another one and try it. So that's very good. So those are good inspiration for you. You can also go on Roblox. There's a ton of little small games that are very easy to implement in terms of gameplay that puts all the players together, and obviously again will create retention. Another one is Rec Room. So that's in VR. In Rec Room, you can create also your game. So obviously it's a different type of input. It's different than it's far away from a phone, but the ideas are very good, and that's what I want you to keep in mind. So once you have ideas and you have a team, let's say of 3 or 4 that wants to network a game, then you have good game designers, understand community and how to bring people forward. Then you can also take your 6 weeks and create a multiplayer game. So obviously for us at Photon, we have a ton of services on how to make you go faster. We have templates all over the place, and that we cover a lot of different type of games. So if you want to build it on your own, you can totally do it. But if you want to go faster, you can use our service, and we're going to be happy to help you out. We do support a bunch of different network topologies, so either hosted on the player, hosted in a shared cloud, or hosted on a dedicated server. And we also have the determinism with our Photon Engine, which will make the game very snappy and also working in every countries out there. So that was how to retain players with real multiplayer hyper casual games. I hope it was answering some of the questions you might have, and thank you for the team at Hyper Games for inviting me. It was a pleasure to present this for you today. Thank you.